Making a glass wave, part 2. You'll start out with getting out your safety gear, and then you're going to take apart the frame. Begin by removing the backer, which we're going to save and use later, and then if there's an insert, take that out, we'll save that to measure, and remove the glass in the front. Once that's done, you want to go ahead and measure, so that's 1 1/8 by 6.5 on the inside for this frame. So we'll make a glass piece that's 6 inches by 6 inches, so it will be smaller and fit in the frame. On that backer, you want to clean up any gunk with a sanding pad and then paint the edges because we'll mount the glass to it. Next we get out our glass, which is 12 by 36 inches, and we're going to cut that into 6 by 12 inch strips, and then those are going to get cut into smaller 2-inch strips, shown here. One of the most important things to do when cutting glass is to clean it really well. So I'm using a regular old glass cleaner here on the first round, and then the second round I'm going to use isopropyl alcohol or denatured alcohol to make it super clean. And this is even brand new glass. Then I'm going to measure out those 6-inch strips that we're going to cut, get out my cut-in oil, get a little bit on the cutter, daub off the extra, and then make a smooth, continuous cut all the way down. I'll cover this several times, don't worry. Next step, we'll take the runners and put them on the edge and break the glass. The runners have a convex side and a concave side, so that convex bottom goes underneath the cut and the concave goes on top. And then you press and it snaps. If you have a decent cut, you shouldn't have to press too hard with the runners, and you should definitely practice your cuts and breaks on a couple of scrap pieces. Don't expect to get it right the first time. You'll have to play around with pressure. If your hand is shaking, you're pressing way too hard. So I've broken down that large piece into 12 by 6 inch pieces, and now I'm cutting those pieces into 2 inch by 6 inch pieces. If you happen to screw up a cut, don't bother cutting over it again. You can damage your wheel and it won't make the cut any better. And here's a pro tip: if you're on your last cut and there's not enough room for the guide to rest on the ledge, what you can do is flip the glass around and rest it on that long side and make another cut. Just keep in mind that wherever you finish your cut, that's where you're going to apply the runners or breakers. So now after I've cut all those pieces into strips, I have about 72 2-inch by 6-inch strips, and I need to figure out how to make those into waves. Here are a couple of really handy pointers when cutting your glass waves. The first is you want to stay away from the edges. If you make your cut really dramatic, 1, it's very hard to make that cut successfully, and 2, it's more likely to run in a direction that you don't intend it to. So try really hard to keep it within that 1/2 inch sweet spot right in the middle of the glass. The more dramatic the cuts, the more interesting the piece is, but just to start out, this is plenty challenging, so don't go too crazy. Stick to that little green zone. And I removed the glass piece on the frame, but in case you want to keep that glass piece on, you definitely need to keep the height of the waves underneath that thickness of the frame insert. So here I am taking my piece of glass and looking at the thickness of my frame and trying to draw a wave that fits right within that green zone. This is the first cut, so I can kind of draw any line I want. And when I go to actually make the cut, I'm going to go really slowly so I can focus on staying on track on that line. When you put pressure on the glass with those breakers, you'll see that crack running all the way through the piece. So now what I'm going to do is repeat that basically and modify every single cut. So I take my dry erase marker and I'm going to use a series of dots and arrows to indicate where I want the next line to go so I get a movement within that wave. The dot indicates that I want the line to stay where it is, and the arrow indicates where I want the line to go. So you can see that crest either moves up or down, and again, I'm moving really slowly so I stay on that line. Trust me when I tell you, you need to draw every single line and then keep your pieces in order. It is so easy to get them confused, and there's just no shortcut. So don't try. There's no way to shortcut this process. And in general, you don't want to make too drastic of shifts too quickly. So the difference from one wave to the next, you want to have maybe at the most 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/16 of an inch. So it's not moving a lot between pieces, but overall it'll make a gentle arcing wave. At this point you might be thinking, this is a lot of work, and you're right, it's a lot of work. Fortunately, when you learn how to do the first step, which is cutting glass in straight lines, you can apply that to doing the curved cuts, which is more complicated, but the same principle. You'll notice I have the previous piece next to the one I'm about to cut. That gives me a reference point so I know that I am making the wave kind of move in the right direction and that my lines are consistent. And the final step for this portion is to clean the glass and then take a break.